Welcome back, WNST, Towson, Baltimore, and Baltimore Positive. We are sort of morphing our brands a little bit. If you've been out on our social, you'll see WNST and Baltimore Positive sort of one and the same as we get going with perhaps a baseball season next week and perhaps a football season next month. This guy has chronicled all of this as a national writer at Bleacher Report. He has been a friend and a foe over the course of years. At some point, next time we get together, it'll be a Zoom conference call so everybody can see how good-looking you are, Brad Gagnon. But before we get to any of that, there's your Canadianness and my Americanness and the fact that we're sticking to sports and morphing sports and Americana and Canadiana and all this stuff. We're in a really weird place from the last time we got together, which it was just sort of, your Blue Jays stink. No, your Orioles stink. I stink worse. No, you stink worse. Now it's more like, hey, what's your COVID rate, bro, right?
Yeah, those were simpler times, right? And you and I, to an extent, refuse to fully stick to sports, and I think that's fair because, of course, this world goes beyond sports, and we all have the right to share our voices and our opinions on things that are happening in this world. So I've been a very concerned neighbor of late.
So what you're saying is this is not going to be like a conversation about like Rush and hockey and free marijuana.
That's the beauty of our conversations is that, Nestor, we can go from COVID rates to Rush to the Blue Jays bullpen to the NFL, which is what I'm technically paid to do.
Which is why I originally called you, by the way.
Swoop.
We don't ever talk about football, do we? Like, literally, almost never.
We get to it.
Well, I mean, let's start with how are you? How is Toronto? Why are they playing hockey in August? I mean, I have so many questions above and beyond, like, baseball and Geddy Lee and sport. How's Geddy? As long as Geddy's okay. We lost Neil since the last time we got together, for crying out loud.
That's right. We did. But no, as far as I know, Geddy's okay. I haven't heard anything otherwise, so that's good news
important.
Right now.
Let's start with good news.
The key. You got to protect. You got to make sure the king is safe, and then you go from there. But no, we're good. Toronto is Toronto's latest. Or actually Ontario, the province itself, which has about 12 million people. Yesterday was 111 total new cases, 1 death. So we're pretty much down to, and that's still, you want it to be 0.
And you're not letting us in, right? If I go to the Peace Bridge right now, will they not let me? Like, can I not drive into St. Catherine? I mean, literally, I'm only asking.
No.
I don't know.
No, I don't believe so.
I don't think I can.
If you did, you would need to. It would be for essential purposes of business travel, and you'd still need to quarantine 14 days. So actually, just to kind of swing it over to what the Blue Jays and what we're going through with baseball and hockey in this city, is the fact that the Blue Jays are a little bit disgruntled over the fact that they have to quarantine for 14 days. Every time you leave Canada and return, you have to stay in your home for 14 days. And, of course, during a baseball season, even this weird...
Can I ask you a question? Because I'm American,
yeah.
Okay? I'm just asking this question. When you say you have to, what does that mean? That, like, if your girlfriend, who's very lovely, who's now your wife, were my girlfriend, and I had a girlfriend in Toronto at one point, like, if I just wanted to come and visit, what would they do to me that I wouldn't do to myself, that I couldn't wink? I say it's like safe sex, Brad. I say it's like it's like the honor system is what we're on now. Do you? Yeah.
Exactly.
Did you last time? You always use one, right? You wink. Yeah. Okay. Well, let's go. Here we go. Let me into the country, right? Like, so I'm really. I'm interested in that because I've heard, like, as an American, if I fly to Hawaii, they would, like, sort of stop me at the airport and sort of apprehend me and so I don't even know. I mean, I'm not trying, but I'm wondering for, like, what's it going to be like for any of the Orioles when they come and try to play baseball or whatever, right?
Yeah, well, I mean, what it essentially is, in this case, is it's legally mandated. They check up on you multiple times. They can make surprise visits. I don't know how. I can't imagine they have the resources to truly.
Yeah, who's the police of that?
Jail. I don't think anyone's gone to jail. There were some fines handed out. There is a snitch line I was reading that if you see it really sounds bad. Right? If you see an American plate you can call it in, and they can investigate it on your behalf. So, you're right. If you wanted to, you could probably get away with
I
coming
would
up
be the
here
dirty
and
American
flunking.
if I came up there right now, right? Like, they wouldn't let me anywhere near Willowdale Junior High, would they, right?
Yeah, it's kind of a shame that it's kind of that's the shape of where we're at right now. It's where there's sort of this. I mean, what heck, you guys are dealing with that in terms of Europe's ban on American travel, the Canadian border being closed, which even though it's being kind of touted as a mutual decision, is pretty clearly Canada. Heck, the Premier of Ontario said he has no interest in Americans coming into Ontario for quite some time. But that's just based on, of course, it's based on the rates, right? It's as simple as that. I mean, obviously, travel is what potentially brings your numbers back up. And right now, Canada and Ontario's numbers are very close to nil. Eventually, you're going to have to open up your borders. Eventually, trade's going to happen. Eventually, you got to reopen places, and we reopened a lot slower than most of the United States.
Are you like open? Like, I'm
happens,
asking, like, Brad, can you just like? You're in Toronto right? Can you just like go out and get a beer right now? No Are you wearing masks? Like, what's going on in Toronto right now?
Yeah, I can do that. Nothing indoors, but all of our patios are open now. I can go and get a beer. You have to wear a mask indoors anywhere. Masks are 100% legally required now.
So nobody's gone to like Ottawa or to the State House with AK-15s with beards and no mask yelling, we have liberate Ontario.
We have them too. We have them.
Okay.
We all have them. There's been some of those protests, and they took over they went into the subway system without masks and their chants and whatnot. They're small groups that I think look bigger because the news coverage that they get. We're usually talking like 30 people, but no, we even though I would imagine that if you did a poll of Canadians on mask wearing, I would bet it would be a heck of a lot more pro-mask than what I'm seeing based on reports from the United States, especially some of the southern states. There are always going to be the dissenters, and we have them. We're not immune to that.
You're Canadian nice, is what you're telling me.
That's exactly. It's like a much tamer version of anything we're seeing on CNN or MSNBC or Fox right now. So it's basically just miniature to an extent, which is what Canada is compared. We're talking about 10% of the population and really probably 10% of the problems right now.
How did you make all the great music, though? That's what I want to know. Brad Gagnon, he covers, believe it or not, the National Football League for Bleacher Report in the great city of Toronto, where one day I hope they let me back in, bro. You know what I mean? Like, I mean,
so.
I've had fun up there. I love the people. You know how much I love the people. I'm wearing right now, just for your pleasure, next time we get together, we'll have a Zoom, and my logo will be over here, and I'll get to see your face, and if you have any animals or whatever you have in your place, I'll get to see what books you're reading behind you. But I'm wearing my Major League Baseball, BASS ball shirt for your pleasure. I just happen to be wearing it's like the third day in a row. I can't believe it doesn't have Tarka chocolate love ice cream stains on it. But nonetheless, before we get to football, I do want to talk a little baseball. I know what a Blue Jays guy you are, and I've been asking this all week. I don't think it's a great idea they're playing. I think the whole thing's a little farcical and a little business first and everything else later, and I think they do enough of that, the fighting they have with the Players Association, all that. I know next Friday the games are going to be on and whatever, and we play at Fenway Park, and I guess they're going to get to the point where they're going to have pitchers throwing 45 pitches. They're going to start. Are they going to finish? I don't know. We'll get to football in a little bit, but you're a sports guy, Brad. I'm a sports guy. You're a hockey guy. I'm a hockey. We love sports. This has been the weirdest part of my life, and hell, you're half my age, right? So,
yeah.
How old are you? I'm 52. Did I get it right or no?
No. You don't. You're not double me. Don't worry. I'm 33. So you got
26.
A Canadian who can just freshly drink, or an American who is 2 years away from that. That's what you have on me right now.
But you got legal weed up there, so you just do what you want. You're free. You're free in Canada, independent, fiercely independent. But the baseball idea and the idea that they could do this socially distanced as a sport, I'll buy into that. The idea that playing in empty stadiums is interesting or fascinating to me. I don't know. I mean, the sport was going the wrong way from the beginning, right? And whether this will be some awakening next weekend where the whole world will find baseball and fall, I'm not believing any of that fantasy land stuff, but I'm wondering whether they're going to get away with it. You know, my question is, are they going to get 60 games in? Are they going to have a World Series? Are people going to take it seriously at any point? And I guess it starts with, like, your city and my city because, like, we're 2 of the 30 places. They better care about it, right?
Yeah. From my standpoint, the pros are the obvious. It's just that you say baseball is a more socially distant sport compared to basketball and football. So the opportunities for players to potentially interact and get it or give it to each other, and then all of a sudden a team is infected, and then all of a sudden you have a major problem on your hands. That's probably limited. But then I'm concerned about the fact that whereas the NBA is in literally a airport style bubble, the NHL is going to be in practically the same thing. It looks as though in Toronto and Edmonton. And then you look at baseball, and right now the Blue Jays are here in Toronto. Again, there's this 14-day quarantine when you cross the border. Every other team is in a separate country. The Blue Jays spring training facility is in Florida, which is obviously in the heart of where the pandemic is at its worst right now. That's their alternative option for playing their games. So either way, you're sort of you're in trouble. I think the opportunities based on the travel in baseball are just going to be really, really high for us to have a potentially season shutdown part 2 type of scenario. I don't know why they decided to not just, I mean, you figure even though Arizona and Florida are being hit so hard right now, just do the entire season at your spring training facilities. Like, just play it out like the damn Grapefruit League if you need to do it that way, or don't do it at all. I just think that going to airports in, 30 different cities, or I guess 28 different cities, and traveling all over North America, is going to be very problematic. So yeah, the sport itself has a good chance because of them not contaminating each other on the field. And even as you say, the crowds, like, that doesn't concern me. How many baseball games do we watch where it feels like it's damn near empty stadium? I mean, especially Baltimore the last couple of seasons, you've experienced that. Toronto's had many lulls where it feels like you're watching a game and you can hear that individual guy hollering from the upper deck because it's so empty. So that'll just be this entire season. You'll just be watching games that feel like they are teams that are out of contention or don't have big fan bases, but you'll be seeing it in places like Yankee Stadium and Fenway, which will be a weird feeling. But I think we'll get used to that.
I haven't considered giving the Orioles money in a long, long time, Brad, but when the Oakland A's decided to put the cutouts there and then they'll send me the baseball if it hits me in the head, if Orioles put a deal together like that, I have to at least consider that, right?
Yeah, that's true. I mean, there are a lot of ways in which they can take advantage of this novelty, for lack of a better phrase, and find a way. I mean, they can turn this into a fundraiser the way that the NFL draft did it. I'm sure they're going to have many opportunities.
Well, you're in a city where SARS was turned into an opportunity by the Blue Jays, right? Literally, right?
Yeah. Well, and the whole city. I mean, SARS Toronto was the hardest hit city outside of mainland China.
So you take pandemics and like pathogens a little more seriously than say your Americans do, eh? Right? Yeah.
That might be a clue as to maybe why the reaction's been stronger, actually. But yeah, so we've been through this, and SARS became this. SARS Fest was this. Obviously it was all outside of Toronto, but that was something that was one of its epicenters was Toronto, and they turned that into. They tried to turn it into some good, right? And so
wasn't that? Didn't you guys have a big concert with Getty and didn't Rush put the band together and like play a one-off and like the weirdest thing ever? And
it was like an airport hangar up in kind of north of downtown Toronto. And
man, what year was that, man? That was a long time ago, right?
I think it was 2003. I'll look up. You have to look up SARS Fest.
Yeah. I got it right. Yeah, it was July 30th, 2003. How many other bands played
Rush,
there?
AC/DC, Justin Timberlake, the Rolling Stones. I believe the Rolling Stones got on a plane or something and did another thing that night in England. Like it was just a completely elaborate concert that was mainly in Toronto, but they were synced up with the rest of a few different locations.
You know why I didn't go to that, dude? I got married on July 25th. of 2003.
Really?
And I had our wedding, our big wedding with our friends and family was August 1st. So I know why I didn't go to that, and I know why I wasn't like tuned into that in any way, because it was my wedding week. It was my wedding weekend. I had 350 people in a hall. So I'm trying to think, like, why didn't I go to? Like, wait, how the hell did I miss that? Oh, I was getting married that weekend. Oh, so I'll never forget when it was now, as I'm wearing my Getty shirt. So yes.
Yeah, you were married the week of SARS Fest. It was the second most important event in the world for everyone else.
Well, so hold on. You were 16 years old. So, I mean, so a pathogen came into your life. You knew about, like, pandemics and plagues at 16 without having to read the Bible or anything like that, right?
Yeah, we went through a miniature version of this. It wasn't as enhanced. It wasn't as many deaths. It wasn't as long. It wasn't as drawn out as long. They stamped it out fast. If you look at, I don't want to get too far off for you, but if you look at some of the history of SARS, it's actually an incredible feat from the medical community.
But, hey, dude, it was a big enough deal to bring AC/DC, the Stones, and Rush together. You know what I mean? Like, that's how big of a deal it was. So let's not play it down. But when I got on the phone with you, it didn't even occur to me that, like, it would be like 9/11 in America, where you were at that point. For your community, you had the Contagion movie for a little while, right? Literally.
Yeah. So exactly, everyone was fearful, and it really did tear up the city for one summer essentially, or one, I guess it was spring. So yeah, I mean, we've been through that, and now all of us have been through it. So if we got to go through it again, knock on wood, hopefully we're all going to be better prepared for it, and maybe that's the second wave, which we're all anticipating, or maybe that's something else. We just don't know. But the point is that we were blindsided by this pretty much worldwide, even though there were a lot of warning signs.
Brad Gagnon has been my friend for a long time. We usually talk football. We're about to get to that point. He is in Toronto. He covers the National Football League as a national writer for Bleacher Report, but is also a huge hockey fan, music fan, and international traveler and bon vivant when he's wearing various gear outside of Cancun. And I hope you get to go back there and sun yourself, you and your wife, sometime soon. All right, so moving from baseball to football in some way and tying it together, and I guess I've been doing this a lot this week. I've said this out loud, and I said it to my wife, and I still think it's probably the most profound thing I've at least said this month, which was, where else in our society will anyone sanction putting 22, but not really 22, more like 100 grown men together without masks in a mud pit, wrestling over a piece of leather, and putting it on television for our gladiatorial spirit, and as an inducement to wager, of course, on Sundays. Where else would that be, like, cool in our society right now? But we would say that and then say to these men, we'll stop at the gas station on the way home, and whatever you do, don't go out and eat or anything. And if you got a girlfriend on the side, don't do that. And, hey, if your wife, but if your kids are going to school, well, you can't touch your kid. Well, and that's going to work for 18 weeks. That we're going to make this work. They're going to get on airplanes, to your point, and fly to places like Houston and Indianapolis and Foxborough, where I have flights right now booked for the fall. And they're going to play football in empty or maybe empty stadiums, and they're going to get to a Super Bowl in Tampa the first week of February, and you and I are going to be there on Radio Row, fist bumping, Brad, right? Like, like
it just seems so far-fetched when you play it all the way out, eh?
Yeah, and I'm thinking to myself, and I've said this many times, and I'm a Tony Robbins guy, and it's a know your outcome. Before you start, try to figure out where you're going to finish. And I can't find an outcome that I find to be believable for them to have a season of integrity in any way. And again, baseball's already doing a 60, baseball begins with no integrity, of like what a season would look like, or what pitching would look like, or what competitive balance would look like, and the fact that Nick Markakis doesn't want to play amongst, any of that, let alone when the illnesses and the Aroldis Chapman start setting in, and, the whole relief corps can't perform this week, right? But when that happens in football, I just think they're really setting themselves, I don't know what's the top side of this, that they scuffle through this and only 3 teams forfeit 3 games. I don't know, but the integrity part of what they're trying to pull off, I love the American spirit here, Brad, in trying to get this. We're going to fight through. Man, this is not a good idea. This is not smart, and I don't really believe there's going to be a Super Bowl in Tampa. And by the way, Brad, I'm in Baltimore. We have the best team.
That's true. You guys are a contender, and you're still admitting it, that it probably shouldn't be going through. So, I mean, it's really tricky, and that yes, it's also the cynical way to look at it, of course, and it's rightful, is that it's financial driven more than anything else. The passionate, respectable way also to look at it is the idea that, yeah, I mean, they're trying to do something that's going to make us all happy. We all love watching sports. We all love watching football. We all would love to watch it on Sundays and Thursdays and Mondays in the fall. And so,
and the happier we are, the more money they make. Keep that in mind now.
Yeah, exactly. And so, regardless of the motives, the end result is that it is something that we all root for and hope that we can have in our lives this fall. It's complicated by the fact that I think there's been a little bit of hubris to the way the NFL has gone about things. I think they saw, hey, the draft went great, free agency went great. We're just going to assume we're going to be good by September. And obviously that's been a mentality more broadly and expansively than just the National Football League. But where you see the NBA having this really, really extreme bubble, and then on the other end you see, or even
and still having problems, by the way,
and still having problems, and they might not work either. But the NFL, the idea of having, I kind of think that in hindsight they're going to say, damn, what we should have done if we really wanted to try to pull this off is back in March or April, we should have found one spot and said, we're having a 10-week season this year. It's going to be September or maybe October to November. We're going to play a Super Bowl or mini playoffs in December and get the hell out, and wait until 2021, when hopefully at that point where there's a vaccine and we can move on and focus on that. But for now, we've had strike shortened seasons. Nobody gives an asterisk to the teams that won the Super Bowl in those seasons. Let's view this as like a strike-shortened season. Maybe you want to look at it as saying it's a bit exceptional, and maybe it is an asterisk, or maybe you don't want to respect the team that wins out of a scenario like that. But let's get into a bubble for 10 weeks. Let's get it done so that we can have a champion this year, so that people can have their distraction this year. But the idea of playing 17 weeks in 30 different cities, over the course of, adding the playoffs, a 5-month span into the winter when a second wave is widely predicted, it just seems like it's very ignorant of the reality. And again, I'm hoping for both my livelihood and my passion for the game that it happens. And that somehow we pull this off with no massive spikes, or no teams having to be sidelined entirely, or no having to just stop the season suddenly in October, or play half a season where guys suffer career-ending injuries inevitably, because that happens in every single week of football practically, and then you don't even complete that season, so it's all for naught. Those are all terrible scenarios, and I hope they don't come to fruition, but of course I do have that fear just based on the reality.
Well, because we've been paying attention, right? And, I think that there's, to quote the great Neil Peart, a great Canadian, we're only immortal for a limited time. You know what I mean? And I think the thought that we're football, we do things differently. We're America. I can't even see this pathogen. How's it going to beat me? You can't even see it. We had a governor of Georgia who I'm not even sure who understood what the word asymptomatic even meant, let alone what an asymptomatic.
That was like 2 months later when he made that statement, right? You've been talking about that for 2 months.
You have great patriots like Daniel Dale who look out for our people down here, and I follow them on Twitter, and keeping up with all the lies, which is very difficult to do. Can I just ask you on the other side of that, because you're Canadian, what's the overwhelming sentiment about the American part in all of this, about whether, because the Americans are going to decide whether sports get going or not, and despite the fact that your place is pretty clean right now, we can't come in and you can't come out and all that stuff, this is, I am gravely concerned of what the rest of the world thinks of how stupid we are, have been, and certainly will be, if you've seen the numbers this week in the South.
Yeah, it's not pretty. The general sentiment regarding what's happening there. Put it this way: I don't think the whole blame it all on China thing is taking with Canadians. I don't know how many Americans it's taking with. I get the feeling it's
only
pretty
the
much a 50-50
dumb ones,
split.
but yes, only the racist ones usually. Yes.
Yeah, that's fair. So yeah, that is not sticking here. We understand that something was potentially generated in Asia, and that there could have been a lot more done to prevent it from continuing to permeate throughout North America. And so that alone is not an excuse as to where it came from for us. So there's a lot of frustration toward the United States, surely in that respect. In terms of sports restarting in the States, it's funny. If you did a poll of Canadians or Toronto sports people, I think there's a lot of enthusiasm about the Raptors because they think, first of all, they're in Orlando, they're in that bubble. Second of all, you just mentioned it. They're a contender. It's a little bit easier to be psyched about a team, even under the circumstances that, hey, maybe they have a chance to repeat. Like,
no, but Brad, have you sensed my lack of enthusiasm for the 2020 Baltimore Orioles in this 60-game campaign where they could catch lightning in a bottle?
Yeah, but the odds of the Jays or Orioles catching enough lightning are still slim, but they're better than in a 162-game season. And there's not, even though the Jays, particularly right now, have a lot of young players to be excited about, there's not a lot of enthusiasm. I mean, last night, a lot of my friends were watching an intra-squad game that was nationally televised for the Blue Jays from the Rogers Center. So I shouldn't say that there's not passion, but I think the Raptors are the clear number one. There's passion about the return of hockey because it's Canada and that's legally binding. But aside from that, I think there's a lot of questions about, especially the NFL starting up, but also baseball having the type of travel that they have. There's no interest in having the Blue Jays host these games in Toronto at the Skydome. There's no interest in that. I think they're saying go to Buffalo or go to Florida and play your games out for the season. We don't really want to have teams coming up here. So that's one sentiment for sure.
Well, I envision a time and a place and a space sometime, hopefully in the not-too-distant future, where Getty puts together something, maybe with Alex, maybe not. They put something together outside of Willowdale, you and Alicia, me and Jen. I come up across the border, you know what I mean? We can drink Canadian beer. We can eat food. We can watch hockey together. We can be in the same room, in the same country, in the same place. And we'll be all through this. And I'll go back to watching Maple Leafs games and, all that stuff, right?
We just need that. We just need a vaccine in our arms, man. And hopefully that's in the next, half year to a year. And hopefully people actually agree to let that happen. And I don't want to get too political, but, I mean, if nobody agrees to that, then we're going to have problems for a lot longer.
Keep the faith, man. We're all in it together, Brad. We are the world. We'll make it work. And if we play football, I promise to call you and we'll talk about it, even though no one will be there. And we have the best team. And I hope all these things go well. And the really weird part about it is on all these conversations, I call someone like you and how could I spend the last 20 minutes talking about the Ravens offensive line and what Greg Roman's going to do and how they're going to, employ Calais Campbell and how Matt Judon's getting screwed by the man. And, I can't even get into any of that. You know what I mean? It doesn't even make sense to me to talk about that. And I love talking about that stuff, but I can't talk about it right now.
Yeah. There's times when I take solace in giving people the distraction, but then there's times when I myself am very distracted. We talk about it. Covering sports right now can definitely be difficult under the circumstances, and that doesn't even touch on the unrest we had throughout that country and our country over police brutality in the last few months. It's been very difficult to stay on the sports track at all times.
Don't worry, dude. You're young. You got it all ahead of you. Wait till you get to be old and cynical like me, Brad. Hey, man, I appreciate
I'm on that
you.
path.
Yeah, well, at some point, keep putting those pictures up of Toronto. Keep going out and wearing a mask and elbow bumping and staying safe. And maybe someday I'll get back up there and jam with you and Getty at Skydome.
I hope so, man. Thanks for having me.
Keep them safe. Brad Gagnon up in Toronto, town that I love. Everybody knows that I love the Canadian people. I'm wearing my Getty Lee shirt right now. He's a national writer at Bleacher Report. You can read his work. He's at Brad_Gagnon, Gagnon. And you can find him out on Twitter. You can find me anywhere on the web, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Snapchat, Instagram, north of the border, south of the border. Gonna catch up with my boy Sean Simpson in Ottawa soon, too. He's at some lake cabin doing meatball stuff, and I told him I'm going on vacation in Canada next year. I'm going to have a meatballs cabin somewhere in Quebec, just like Bill Murray did it. We are WNST.net. We're calm. We're very local, and we are Baltimore positive.